So excited to be having this conversation. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
And we've been having this conversation for so long.
Yes.
Um, of- hey, we're really profound. Let's share this conversation with others. So we actually thought, everyone, that the conversations that we were having, they were the kind of conversations that we might have. Like for me, it felt like the kind of conversations we might have at like a beautiful female, like women's get together or
Mm,
circle, creatives or professionals hanging out. So we thought, why not share it? Because there's going to be other people with the same opinions or ideas and have different ideas and insights. And so, yeah, here we are to talk about this mythical creature called balance and our ideas of evolution. I'm so interested in your story, Mara, and how you've come to be doing what you're doing and how it continues to unfold. And I'm sure how it will continue to unfold for
yes.
life. But let's start with a little grounding, little attunement for ourselves and for everyone. And you're going to be needing this. I'm not sure if everyone can hear, but I've got some work happening all around, clanging and windows being cleaned. So I'm just going to turn down the volume on that. So wherever you are, notice the sounds around you. Just letting them be a part of your environment. Not good, not bad, not right, not wrong. And then bring your attention as you start to turn down the volume on those sounds, your skin, the temperature of your skin, and then to your breath and the way that animating the body and moving the skin, the edges of your body. On an effortless exhalation, land your awareness in your very center, wherever that feels like for you today. Some part of the inner landscape. It could be an energetic anchor, it could be a physical anchor like the heart or the lungs or the brain. We just watch that part of the body be moved by the breath. And be nourished by this breath, this life force. And as you're watching the breath, you notice perhaps 4 phases to it. There's the inhalation, which happens right now without you even thinking about it. You're just observing it. Slight pause there at the top of that inhalation. Second phase, the exhalation. Third phase. And that natural pause between exhalation and the next breath. Fourth phase. Mhm. Just noticing that breath, right? Just being breathed. I like to think of it as like being breathed by that same force that birthed us, that breathed us day one. I'm just going to start to co-create with that very same force, to widen the breath ever so slightly in that first phase. Feel as though you're breathing out into the ribs, to lengthen it up into the collarbones or towards the heart and down into tailbone or the perineum. A slight pause at the top, like you're just cupping precious prana. And releasing that breath, a beautiful exchange of gases, of energy. That pause at the base of it, as if honoring that cycle of life before the cycle starts again. You might add a count to the breath so that whatever the breath in is, it's generous but gentle, without struggle, without strain. May the pause at the top in that second phase be of the same count. The same count moves into the exhalation. Same count at the pause between breaths, phase 4. Samavritihi, equal parts. And so once you establish that equal part, equal sides for every part of the breath, notice if one breath feels naturally, phase feels naturally more easeful, be it the in breath or the out breath, and then give to that a little more. So that the breath doesn't necessarily be equal or in proportion right now. Or maybe you sense that the inhalation doesn't feel quite as easeful, but the lungs need just a little more stretching out. And so you add a little more to them. Every day we wake up, the breath's a little different. It changes. Lung capacities change depending on what we've consumed, how we slept, what we said, what we haven't said. And so we can co-create with this great mystery, just create a sense of balance. It doesn't always look like equal parts. Now, after this next exhalation, just let any technique drop and go back to just being breathed. And go back to your center. And the invitation as we step into this conversation is to listen from this center place, grounded, steady. And whenever we notice ourselves shifted or leaving, we come back. All right. Your closed eyes, you might want to open them again.
That was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Grounded. It's always nice to breathe with someone else.
Yes.
Thinking before, just to frame our convo a little bit, I was
Mhm.
thinking, we talk about this thing about balance, and I wrote a book on this mythical thing that is balance, and how we're never really in equal parts in everything, just like the breath. So, maybe the key isn't in keeping everything equal, but in not letting one area get so heavy that we topple over. And I know the
Mm.
area that get heaviest is um, go, go, go with work and being pushed. And I thrive from this place of not being enough and not being special enough. And so I've spent so much time proving to the world that I am special enough. And here, look at all the things that I can do. And so that will send me into being off balance, falling over. And then, after a while, I get back up again. And then the whole play with balance starts again. So, yeah, it's maybe this natural ebb and flow of attention and energy. And it's more dynamic and alive than just box breathing equal part. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And what's I always think of, honestly, when I think of balance now these days, is I picture like a tightrope walker or a ballerina or even a seesaw or scales. If you really look at it, like I think for the longest time, I always like, well, I need to be in balance. I need to have these equal parts. They need to have equal weight. They need to be still. They need to be perfectly in balance, right? Like almost like that perfectionism in it too. And it's like, then you look and you're like, that tightrope walker, they have so many little wiggles. The ballerina is like never entirely still, right? Like there's always just this little bit of movement. Like you were just saying, like there's always this little bit of play, right? There's this little bit involved in it that's not it's never going to be perfection. And I think for me, at least, like letting go of the idea that it had to be perfectly balanced, that everything had to have, like you said, equal weight, all of that, just kind of be like, no, it's just, it kind of ebbs and flows a little. Or I even love to think of harmony these days, even more so than balance sometimes. Is like harmony involves multiple parts. And it's kind of like harmony leading into that like unity or integration of all these parts instead of like balance having to be two things constantly equal. Does that
Mm.
make sense? Have you thought?
Uh, that when you're talking about the ballerina analogy, I was thinking about in yoga when I'm teaching balances,
Yeah.
what I've learned is that like the little missteps or the little imbalances, where you're in tree pose and or any sort of standing pose and you feel the wobble happening. And so often our mind will go to, "Oh, it's not gotta be perfectly still and straight." So I've got my drishti, I've got my gaze point, I've got my breath, and even if all of those things are happening, if I'm perfectly aligned with my vision, if I'm breathing beautifully, I'll still wobble. And what I've learned just through studying the body is that the
Mm,
wobble is strengthening us. The wobble is what strengthens the joints. So that little bit of being off balance and getting yourself back on balance is what actually strengthens us. That's what strengthens us. And our body is always working, especially when we're standing. We don't even think about this so much because there's so much going on internally. We don't have to think about it. It's how incredible our bodies are. They just do it. We can be unconscious to it, but our bodies, when we're upright, are always working to keep us upright. So
yeah.
that if it's kind of moving off center a little bit, it brings us back.
Mm,
So, mm, I love that ballerina analogy.
yeah.
So, yeah, the perfection part of I think that's something I really strived for earlier on in my 20s, and I learned that when we opened flow year 1, there was burnout, there was,
Mm,
trying to do everything, try and be everything, and trying to present myself as this, like, perfect yogi, and I've got the
yeah.
perfect and we're gonna make it run perfectly, and, there were a lot of things going on for me at that time, and I'd love for you to share your experiences with, like, burnout and the struggle, um and for me, it just felt so inauthentic considering I was sitting in class and talking to people about balance
Yes.
and people about looking after themselves and talking to people about being kind to themselves. And, like I said, there was a lot going on. I was going through a breakup. I was engaged to be married to,
Mm,
um, and we opened the business. So I was like getting up at 4 in the morning and, I was, I was teaching yoga and I was running the business. There was so much going on. It was such a reactive point in our business because we had no systems. We were just learning on the fly.
right.
And I'd get home sometimes 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I'd be staying on people's couches because I'd moved out because of this relationship breakdown. And it wasn't long before I completely burnt out. Plus,
Mm,
I was in the of, an eating disorder. I was trashing my body. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend, Anthea, Apotheca by Anthea, and she kind of had this beautiful, nourishing, nurturing energy and got me sort of back on track. And I took myself home to the country and I gave myself a good talking to. And that's where my whole course around the space between
mm,
K play, that messy middle that you and I have talked about a little bit
yeah.
before is that stuff is so, so gold for our evolution. So yeah, where have you had that face plant moment where you kind of fell off the wagon to
Oh
something?
man. Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to say something that you pointed out. And like when you were mentioning yoga, which is such a good point, I'm mentioning ballerinas. And of course, we could talk about yoga with the balance too. But I think related to the yoga piece, but also your story that you just shared. And I don't know if this resonates, but for me, it was like when I kind of let go of it having to be perfect, the way it looked, the way it came off to everyone, and having to be like, I've got it all together. I'm doing everything right. And kind of let a little more of my humanity, my like just innate humanness and how we're no one's perfect, right? Like let that seep in and started to actually trust myself and my own process, not like some greater process, but even just my process, like myself, and put some trust and faith in that, like things just started happening easier. Um, like there was just a more innate like connection that came out. Like I was able to connect with people more and find my, you know, I don't know, when it's like when you share the fact that we struggle, right? Like, because we all do. Like when we put that out there, like people can connect to that. And instead of like, so to answer your question that you asked at the end is like the messy parts for me, for sure. Like I've run my own graphic design and creative consultant business for 20 years. And so many so many times in that business, I was like, I have to be the perfect designer. I have to be the perfect person for my clients. Like, I don't want to, I don't know, ever tell them that I've messed up or made a mistake or own that thing. Instead, and then slowly over time, I started realizing the more honest I was with myself, with my clients, and, keeping your professionalism, of course, but also just letting go a bit and just letting the process of my business evolution become mine instead of what I thought it needed to be. Like, I don't have to have a massive social media following. I'll say it here, but I've, never grown my business with social media in 20 years and I've been successful. Or, try to finally see that there was a way to do it that made sense for me. It didn't have to look perfect on the outside or what I thought looked perfect. I was like, no, this is what actually makes sense for me, for my business, for my instincts. And deeply listening to that instead of constantly listening to all the noise around me, just kind of going in more. And I think noticing those transitions and noticing those times when you're like not feeling aligned and feeling authentic with yourself. And I don't know about you, but like my body always like fights something. Like if I'm
Mm.
doing something that doesn't make sense for me these days, my body is reacting before my brain. My body's like feels uncomfortable or edgy, and so I try to pay attention to that now.
Can totally relate to that. I can totally relate to that. My body will give me signals. There'll be something just not off, and I won't know what it is, but it's almost like something's coming. And so I won't try and figure it out, but instead I will slow down and I will listen more closely. And I'll knuckle
Mhm,
down on self-care or quiet time. I'll knuckle down on making sure I give myself, half an hour before I go do school pickup so that I can lean in and not miss the cues. Not miss the cues. I wrote about this yesterday in the a newsletter that was all about, spirit never speaks loudly. Ego does.
mm,
When I feel fear, when fear is speaking to me, it's gripping. Because so often I work with an incredible mentor, and she, I can be like so confused about something, and she's like, "You prayed?"
mm,
I'm like, and I have a very healthy. I feel like I have a healthy relationship with prayer these days. I grew up in a Catholic environment, and prayer was sort of something I kind of had to do. I had to go to
yeah,
confession. These days, my concept of prayer, my idea of prayer is just very quiet, and it's this conversation.
mhm,
It's conversation. It's speaking, listening, waiting for the cues, and it's quiet. And she's always like, "Have you prayed?" I'm like, "Oh, how did I?" I mean, of course, I let my get all fizzed up, and then I've called you, and then you have to tell me that I have to pray or get quiet, get still, journal, and spirit very rarely speaks to me in a loud voice. I
mm,
might get feeling in the body, but it's not like a pang, it's not like a pain. It's harmony, it's peace. It feels
mm,
feels so spirit is quiet, and in order to listen for the right step or the next right thing or for what's off and how can I come into equilibrium here, I've got to be quiet. I've got to tune in that way. And it's taken me a really long time to acknowledge and appreciate and actually honor and accept that I am quite introverted, and that if I don't have quiet time, I'm gonna hear that voice. There are those of us who I just went away on a skiing trip, and I was around a lot of people a lot of the time and wound
yeah,
up with this mountain range, no downtime, and everything on the mountain's super stimulating. I mean,
yeah,
unless you're on a chairlift and it's just you, it's stunning. There's a lot of stimulation going to a restaurant. There's lots of music playing. You
mm,
go to a restaurant and there's lots of people. So on the last night, everyone was out. I took myself home, turned off all the lights, did a yoga nidra, got quiet, and I went into that with a migraine, and I never get migraines. And I came out
mm.
fine.
Wow.
More and it's just those little attunements that really help me to listen. So when you I'm always fascinated with you because you're writing as well, like, you know that I love writing, but your blog, tell me how that came about.
Oh, well, there, like, that's a big thing about listening. That's the thing, because like you said, there's always these little voices. And like for me, there was a little voice in my head since early 2000s. It was pretty crazy. Like back when I went to college, I kind of struggled with a lot of my own health and wellness issues for years as an adolescent and then in college, and then was getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design. And the very end of college, I was like, maybe I should be doing nutrition. Maybe I should be doing something else. Like, I'm so passionate about all this health stuff too. But I was, too far down the path. So stuck with it, finished it out, started my freelance business. And then it was actually around, I think it was like 2013 or 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. I was at a restaurant having lunch with my dad, catching up with my dad. We were each sipping on a beer, and I was just venting to him. I was so frustrated because I'd been going through so many health issues, and I'd felt like I was constantly restricting myself, trying new diets, trying new lifestyle changes, trying all these things. And life didn't feel fun anymore. When you're pushing that hard to accomplish something that, again, like is like what someone else thinks you need to feel, like I just completely stopped listening to my own gut at that point, ironically. And so I'm venting all this to my dad, and I just proclaimed out loud, I was like, "I want my veggies and my vodka too." Like, just as a metaphor for, like, I wanna be healthy and have fun was, like, where it went. And he looked at me and he goes, buy that domain right now." And so that was back, again, I'm pretty sure it was 2013. And then it wasn't until 2021, actually many years later, that those, like, whispers, like, creeped back in, and those voices were back in, and they were talking to me, and they were like, "You need to share this. Like, people keep asking you about what you've been doing." And so I made veggiesandvodka.com and started posting on it, and then a year or so later started doing emails, and at first I was doing them every week for, like, 2 years. And then last year, took a break from all of that and did my health and wellness certification and became board certified with the Board of Medical Examiners here in the US. And it's been a journey. And I'm imagining you can probably relate to this too, is I think sometimes we think that we're going to arrive a lot quicker. We think that everything's going to resolve and we're just going to like reach this goal and everything's going to be solved and understood. And the more I look back on my journey of these last, 20 some years between starting a design business, thinking about the health and wellness stuff, and now I'm doing all of it, the more I look back and I think, it all happened as it should. It all happened at my pace, at my time, and the whole thing that's making it real right now is I always kept going. And that's what I
Mm.
keep telling myself constantly these days. I'm like, doesn't matter how small the step, doesn't matter how messy, right? That messy middle, doesn't matter how messy or haphazard it feels, just keep going.
Keep showing up. There is so
Yeah.
much in like z I wanna come back to, like, how you've evolved with your work and share with everyone what you do. Um, but also, like, and looking at this whole balance thing and your concept and having that conversation with your dad, I think we have this conversation over and over again, you and I, society, you're having this conversation, yet we still don't seem to be getting it. That, like, balance and health doesn't necessarily equate to having your smoothies, having your by the way, like, raw juices aren't for all of us. They're actually not great for my constitution.
Right?
Um, we have this preconceived notion because this person is doing it, it must be healthy. It comes back to, again, like, listening and being in right relationship with things because we can vodka. Are we in right relationship to it?
Mhm.
We abusing it, or is this like a beautiful way that we're connecting with others? We
Yeah.
enjoying it. Like the times that I most enjoy drinking is when I'm sitting down having a beautiful glass of wine over dinner and connect. And then there's been times where I know that I've had poured a glass of wine because I just wanted to relax. I wanted
Right.
to quieten the noise of the mind and something that's happened that day. And
Mhm.
even well, that's not something to beat myself up over, but it's something to, like, notice, like, in right relationship, what is my intention behind this?
Yes.
Uh, and so, yeah, balance, it comes back to, like, are we again, I wrote this in my newsletter yesterday, we have all these pillars of health. We talk about sleep, nutrition, hydration, movement, and what about play? Like, play, divine play, Leela, and how, play looks different for all of us. The way that I play is very to how someone else might play, but what is that joy? What brings you joy? And how can we interweave that into what we're doing? Would
Mhm.
you interweaving that sort of sense of joy or what you love, play even into what you're doing now with your clients?
Yeah. No, I love that, and I love the way you said that too, because and I loved your newsletter, by the way, yesterday. I was enjoying that greatly, but yes, exactly. I'm a huge fan of play, and that's something, again, that I think especially in, like, modern society, it's like everyone's like, "Go hard, succeed, achieve, like, do all these things or track all the things, eat the right diets, do the right things." And you forget, like, sometimes the best thing you can do is just relieve a little stress. Like, stress is one of the most, you know, profound, like, negative impacts on your body. And so a great way to relieve stress is, like, play, and just also just holding things, I think with play too, is holding it lighter. And so for me, something I've really prioritized and is a huge, huge part of the way I move through the world and the way I run my businesses now is I make time. I paddleboard, one morning a week. I try to mountain bike at least one day a week. I like get outside on the weekends as much as possible because that's what play looks like for me. And I think that's an important thing is like kind of identifying what are the things bring you that like light you up and bring you the most joy inside. And like when you think about playing, like what is that? Define that for yourself. Like don't base it on what someone else is doing, but how does that how does that resonate inside you? And so I think the more I play and the more that I approach my life and my work with almost that playful personality of mine, like it just makes everything more fun. And it's just like, here's a good example. Many years ago, when I was deep in all of my graphic design projects, which I still am, but I would stand in front of my computer when I had no work and just wait. Just wait for emails to come in. Wait for
Oh,
someone to tell me they needed me, right? And then it finally dawned on me. I was like, no, this is a slow period. This is the time you get to go play. And these days I actually like structure play into my work because I mean, I think, be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I feel like it's the times when you're like you said, you have to kind of force quiet. Like, if you're on a chairlift by yourself, that's one thing, but if you're in a crowded restaurant, you've had an overstimulating vacation, you have to, like, make space intentionally to be quiet, to let your mind wander, and so for me, like, paddleboarding is sometimes when I get the best ideas. When I go play, I get the biggest leaps forward in my life and business.
yeah. Yeah, my best downloads come when I am, yeah, playing, walking in nature, mainly in nature.
Mm,
Nature, shower, the bath, after I've gotten out of the ocean, which I haven't done
mm,
for a little um, yeah, nature, that's what and where I'm relaxed, which makes sense with the shower and the
yeah,
bath. Yeah, I
yeah.
can really in front of the computer, though, when we sold Flow, I was like there was this period of time where I was like, "Alright, what's next?" And I would be in front of my computer, like, waiting for what? It was like and so I started this Substack, so it was all about, like, actually, the art of doing no thing, because that's so foreign, it was so
Mm,
foreign. It's foreign for a lot of us, and I'm still working out what really makes me tick play-wise because and it's evolving every week because for so long, I spent so much of my time being so concerned and so constricted and so tight and so restricting in so many ways that when I started my recovery from eating disorder, I'm like, it started for me when I was 13, 14.
mm,
And I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know who I was. I'm still figuring
yeah.
that out. be an ongoing process. But, I really struggled with, like, what makes me tick? What do I
Mhm.
love? And and I think that's been a really nice part of, like, letting go of a lot of the responsibilities and, having I hid behind my career for a long time with my eating disorder because this is the perfect yogi, this is how a yogi's meant to be, and this is what they're meant to do, and became this mask. And when I finally sort of got really honest with myself and those around me, like, "Oh, what's behind this mask?" And then that is definitely an ongoing process. And also
Yeah.
circling more about social media,
Mm.
thought, okay, now that flow's done, like flow's, I'm still there teaching, which I love. I'm so grateful for that. Community is the best. But I knew my husband's phone would go off. I was going to turn
Check.
surfing, wherever that is. Hi. Um, yeah, I thought now that I've got all this time on my hands, I'm going to pour heaps of time into my, Instagram and do more reels and videos. And I stepped back and went in one of my, like, nothing periods of, like, just sitting and doing nothing and contemplating. I was like, what's the end goal?"
Mm.
When I really looked at it, it was just to, I'm still here, I'm still special.
Oh, interesting.
And then when, I let myself get pulled, and I felt the pull very strongly to get more into my writing, and then I found Substack, and I was sitting here in the quiet writing, and no one, I mean, still no one on Substack is reading my stuff. Like, I've got a few followers, but it doesn't matter. Like, I'm loving writing, and it's bringing me joy, and that, in a sense, that also is a form of play for me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's all about right relationship, isn't it? Instagram. I mean, am I in right relationship with that? What's the intention behind that? What's the intention behind my writing? Because I can still, with my writing, get to a point where I'm like, well, that doesn't sound as impressive or poetic, so delete. No, is that authentic? And I've talked a lot about authenticity and
Mm.
what's and the rise of AI and how do we, like, there's so many things that before, once upon a time, I would see as synchronistic. Like, I would get an email about
Mm.
some journey I wanted to go on, or some journey, or some course that I wanted to do. And I'd get these messages through a podcast and through an email, and someone would talk about it. And now it's almost like I don't know what to trust. Is my
Mm.
phone me? Has AI got me? Or like, what are the synchronicities? Like, what's real?
Yeah.
Like, what's real? And I mean, you might have your own take on this. On AI, we have talked about a little while ago, but again, right relation. How can we be shit with this technology?
Yeah. And I think that's a really powerful question when you're saying it, like, what's real? Like, when you say that to yourself, even, I'm curious, like, when you think about the way you just phrased it, you think about AI or social media or whatever, like, what feels real? Like, when you ask, if you were to ask yourself, like, if you answered that, does anything like come up when you say what's real?
I guess I can feel it. There's something that I'm reading, something that I'm watching. Yeah, there's that, definitely that discernment. There's
Mm.
that just like, this person feels really authentic to me. This person feels real. And I'm way more attracted to look at their stuff, reading their stuff, watching their content, listening to their voice and their message over picture perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry, it delayed for a sec. But yes, no, it totally does. Cause that's something that I think about too, is I look at it too. I start getting in my head when I write something, for an email or whatever it may be. And I start thinking like, oh, am I using AI too much to help me? Am I questioning all the things too much? And then it's kind of just, I've started doing this thing where whenever I write an email to a client or writing a newsletter for my audience, is I just kind of step back and sit with it for a second and go, does any of this make me uneasy? Like, I sit with it and read it out loud sometimes even, and going like, "Ooh, something in my gut feels off." And then I like delete a line and I'm like, "Oh, now I feel better." Like
Mm,
there's like almost like I breathe easier. And so I think it's interesting to do that gut check with yourself, and I think it's an instrument that we have access to that we don't always pay attention to. So and I'm working to, like, strengthen that muscle, that instrument, and, like, practice listening to my gut and being like, "Is this real? Is this true for me? Is this authentic for me? Or am I," like you said, "doing it because writing a certain way because it sounds more impressive, or I think it's funnier," or whatever it may be. And then I think it's tricky too, because with the age of AI, it's like taking social media to the next level in a sense, because with social, you have all these things. For so long, where like people talk about fake booking or whatever it is, it's the highlight reels and things like that. And now you have AI that can basically create an entire voice for someone if they
mm,
want. Like they can create all of your posts. And I mean, personally, at least for me, and I feel like I'm seeing this trend in the marketplace too, or just in society, is like people are craving more like one-to-one connection, which was why I've loved all of our conversations. Like we just reached out and we started chatting, and it was like actually having like deep connection instead of like going through the filter of AI or social or something else, or even emails or whatever it may be. It's just there is something so I don't know, like fulfilling, I guess, in a sense, when it comes to when you get that deep connection that
mm,
actually, if you think about how you feel after something like that versus okay, so it's like say you and I have like a great hour-long conversation. I feel amazingly inspired and uplifted and ready to move forward. If I had spent an hour on social media or reading something that would make me feel less than, like there's a totally different energy. And I think paying attention to the things that like fuel you instead of drain you is
mm.
like for me, that's the realness,
Ugh,
that's where I'm leaning these days,
that
trying.
is so inspiring. I can totally relate to that. I can spend all this time trying to do something for socials, and then I'll send it and it won't always feel like an energy drain. Again, right relation. If it's something that I'm really interested in, something passionate about sharing, of course, but for the point of just doing it, to keep safe face and keep going and have
Mhm.
a kind of presence, then that doesn't feel right. But having a conversation like this, that's why I love my women's circle. I love the connection that I get out of that. And um, I, I think also that, yeah, that whole authenticity and honesty is another word. I
Mm,
think it is so, so aligned. And it's why when, you go into recovery rooms and, when I had this support group when I was in recovery,
yeah.
and I still go to these support groups, because the level of authenticity and realness is at a magnitude. Like I walked away from my first meeting so like alive because the stories that I heard around the room were the most raw, most real stories I've ever heard. There was no
Mm,
filtering. There was no manipulating the story to make themselves feel good. It was like, this is who I am. These are the things that I've done. And no one is in these groups to like model color you or make you feel better or change your mind about yourself. They're just there to listen. They're just there to hold
yeah.
space for you. And then other people hold space. Yeah, when you're sharing, you feel like you can be honest because they're all there, hold
Mm,
space for you. They've all been through it. Um, that's just an example of the level of like honesty and authenticity what I want to bring into everything. My relationship included. I've had conversations with my husband lately about that, just that level of honesty, because when I feel like we have that level of honesty, when we've lent into that, when we've had that, it changes everything. It changes everything about what we share with one another, the depth, the level of our intimacy on all levels, but also it leans into the level of intimacy that I have with everybody else, in terms
mhm.
of realness. Um, yeah, that's a big piece at the moment. My whole Sankalpa, what I'm practicing. yoga nidra at the moment because, we wait until we get into this really lower brainwave states of lower brainwave states when we're calm, that we drop in an intention. Because when
Mm,
we're up here, choppy waves of the mind, the surface of the mind where we are for most of the time, if we try and set some kind of affirmation or intention, science suggests that it doesn't work. You can say what you want to
right.
yourself, but when you're in this space of like calm and this open field, setting an intention or repeating an intention to yourself internally or out loud, scientifically apparently has more of an effect.
Huh.
Um, whole
Wow.
piece for me, helper at the moment in my nidra practice is around the authenticity. I am honest.
Mm.
I am honest. And my God, it's challenging to be honest and to
Yeah.
discernment. So if I don't like someone's dress when they walk in the room, I'm not going to say I don't like your dress. I don't have to verbalize absolutely everything, right? I don't have to have
Right.
that level of honesty. I can be discreet.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something that I'm teaching my daughter as well. I'm trying to teach her.
Yeah.
And there's been a few instances where she hasn't wanted to play with other kids in the schoolyard.
Mm,
And so I'm teaching her that, her delivery, of course, but also be honest. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks
yeah.
because we're not going to, coming from someone who's been a lifelong people pleaser,
Yeah.
um, I'm sort of helping her see that honesty is really the best policy.
Yeah. It is. And it's funny is another word that's like coming in my head as I'm listening to you because I could not agree more. It's like when you show up and you're honest with yourself and therefore honest with other people, there's a better connection that happens. And I think it's also like there's a bit of vulnerability exchange, right? Like when you kind of peel away some layers and you're willing to being like, look, like you said in those support groups, like everyone in there is willing to be vulnerable. And so when they listen, they realize they're listening to your vulnerability and they know how much courage it takes to share that. And they can see that and they feel it because they do it themselves, probably at the other times in the group. And so you're all kind of like exchanging this vulnerability and supporting each other and like recognizing how brave you are to be there to do that work. But a lot of people shy away from that, right? And even I struggled with disordered eating too in like my late teens and early 20s. And it was, for me, it was like constantly trying to control something. Like there was a safety in controlling it, right? Like if I could control what was going on with my body, that provided me safety. But it was like peeling back those layers and constantly asking myself, like, what's the deeper drive behind this? Like getting vulnerable with myself, honestly, getting honest with myself and really diving into that. And man, I think sometimes it's one of the hardest things is actually being honest with yourself.
Really is. I think it starts with, for all of us, it starts with, if we were to go, okay, I want to be more honest to myself today, starting today, I think it starts with the small things.
Yeah.
The more that we listen to ourselves and are honest with ourselves, the more we can be honest with other people. And no matter
Mm,
how they're going to react, what they're going to take from it, it's like, I've kept my side of the street tidy. My
right.
conscience is cleared because I've been honest. And so I'm interested, how does that unfold with the work that you're doing with clients these days? And what does that work look like for everyone, just so that they know? Because I know you're kind of bringing the whole person to the table as opposed to just what they want to put out there in terms of their branding.
Yeah, it's been really just a beautiful new phase for my work, honestly. It was like kind of last year after I'd done my whole health and wellness coaching certification and just really dove into a lot of that psychology and like behavior change and growth and like how to, make like lasting lifestyle change, which is so hard on so many levels. And it really comes into that like you need to dig deep and find your specific internal motivation. Like it's different for everyone. Like even on a very surface level, like I'm talking about, like social media isn't for me, but it works great for some people. And so it's like we're all so unique. It's like bioindividuality is such a thing that I think what I discovered last year with one of my long-term clients was they were kind of struggling a bit to balance, and we use that word delicately, right? But struggling to, balance their life and their work. And they were developing a new brand. And I could sense all of their stress and everything. And I was like, you know what? I can help you with your brand and your lifestyle. Like now that I have this new understanding and certification and education around this, I'm been so passionate about doing it for myself for a long time, but now I feel like I have more concrete tools. So I started doing what I'm calling creative partnerships, where I work with clients on this significantly deeper level. So we get more into their lifestyle strategy and then their creative strategy and then start developing their brand or their website or whatever creative project that I'm helping them bring to life. We keep constantly checking in. Does this feel good? Do you feel like, is this bringing you joy still? Like, is this fitting into your lifestyle? Are you overworking? Are you making time for movement, for sleep, for rest, for community connection, whatever it might be? Because we all have our different struggles or areas that, prove to be difficult than more other areas. And so it's been so, so fun to have this year. I've been doing it with a few clients and they're intensives. Like we go for months at a time and we've developed beautiful brands and websites and you can just really sense the excitement in them as they see these things come to life because they've done the work to make sure it resonates with at least where they're at right now because we're always evolving and things might change. But with where they're at right now, like it feels connected. And
Mm.
I honestly am working with all of them. It's like making me feel more connected to my own work. So it's like they don't even know it, but they're actually helping me at the same
Mm.
time, which is really beautiful. So yeah, I've been loving like integrating those two. It feels really different.
Yeah. That's honesty, isn't it? Continually checking in, be like, "Are we still being honest? Are you still being honest with yourself?" Um, and, that brings up something else we've been talking about, in terms of what you're doing in that. What you're doing is, it's quite I think it's quite unique. Like, it's
Oh,
it's something
thanks.
you've developed from just listening to yourself to constantly attuning and checking in and seeing what lights you up and not going down the usual path of using all the usual ways of getting there. Um, and it reminds me that it's not a straight line, is it? It's not a straight line. There's something that I read the other day. It's like, and again, I wrote about this around, there's a path that only we can walk, that only
Mm,
Mara can, there's only a path that you can walk. There's only a path that I can walk in that there's this word in yoga, svadharma. We've all heard the word
mm,
dharma before, and dharma is all about your life's purpose. And there's so much more than that. That's a very reductionist view of it. But if we
right.
look at that aspect of it, that's kind of what it relates to. But svadharma is like your unique purpose, what you can
Mm,
do, what you've been sent here to do that yoga teacher or that mama or that person cannot do. And it's not about separating ourselves. It's about actually unifying ourselves. It's about going within and looking at our own DNA, our own blueprint,
yeah.
our own energetic blueprint and unlocking the keys
Hmm.
because that's our purpose. That's what we've come to like create unity around us with. So it's not about separating ourselves. And I have tended to look at things like, it's so nice to have Beck on, giving us lots of flow. That's so nice.
Yes.
Beck's also my women's circle.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so it's yeah, I could have come at it from like a shadowy place of like, I'm special, I need to be doing the most special thing. And
Mm,
because that started from a very, very young age for me. I believed at one point, in one instance, in one situation, I can see it right there. I can see the goggles that I put at the moment. I was in comparison to another little girl and me not getting the attention that she got and someone telling me that she was special and expecting that would then happen to me and didn't. So from that moment, I'm not special. Oh, okay. I'm going to
mm,
prove I am special. And so I could come at it from that. But Spud Dharma is like, it's not about you standing out. It's about you unifying. It's about you being
mm,
a certain way that no one else can be. And when I hear your story and what you're doing, I'm like, that's you're listening. You're following the cues. You're getting the hints from the universe. You're listening. You're being honest. You're showing up. No, that doesn't feel right. That feels out of balance. Okay, let's come into it. It's that dance. It's that ballerina. It's that tree pose of like, there's the wobble, and I'm okay. It's
mm.
okay. And fall over, and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna learn from that. How am I not in alignment right now? How can I come back to that little wobble, that thing that's strengthening the dance, that's strengthening the tree pose?" And, if we were to give people, our friends listening, and I'm sure they've got, hints for us as well,
Mm.
one on at the moment, like, how do we promote that? What have we got to share with everyone around, like, listening and listening out for the cues and the hints, and not getting, well, I guess that's my advice, is and not getting drowned with the external noise of what we think we should be doing.
Yeah.
If I'm a teacher, I should this is the way that it goes. I do my teacher training, and then I start teaching, and then I do more teacher training, and I do more teaching, and I sort of follow that path for a while.
Mhm.
And I evolve into just teaching workshops, and then I evolve into, having my own online school, or have my own studio, and then no, it doesn't have to look like that. And that's why I love having mentors and looking at inspiration to people in other industries and see what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Right.
Um, Like, what are you doing that lights me up, that, like, resonates for me? Not so that I can be you, but because you're like, there's something about your frequency that's changing my frequency in this really positive way. Like, what is that? And lean in and listen. Ah, okay. That's how I apply it. I'm, gonna create this, I'm gonna start this article. And then and sometimes I think for people who have really like steep in their svadharma, a lot of people will
Mm.
say, I never thought I'd end up here.
Right.
You know, you don't always get the person who goes, oh, from such a young age, I knew I was gonna be a fireman, or from such a young age, I knew I was gonna be an advertising executive. I thought I was gonna be an
Mm.
advertising high flyer executive, but turns out Spirit had different, ideas. They come from just letting life unfold,
Yeah.
letting life
And
unfold, following the cues, picking up the little breadcrumbs along the way.
I loved that story that you shared in your newsletter. Was it last week? Talking about that whole marketing executive experience, right? And how you went to this yoga class and there was a pull. Like you recognized though, and you listened to that. And you took some big, risks and changes in your life by doing that, and going overseas and diving deep into yoga. And like that was so brave. And it's like I think thinking back in my own journey, like the moments that I've leaned into the things that I'm like, "Ooh, this is kind of scary, but this feels really exciting." It's like there's the good fear, right? Like that fear where it's like, actually, I have a friend of mine who describes it. I think she calls it challenge fear, as opposed to like scared fear. Where you
Mm,
actually like lean into something because you're like excited by it. And I think there's just a real beauty in like listening to yourself. And also, I think recognizing something I think about a lot and I talk to my clients about a lot is how do you want to feel? Like, we think a lot about goals that we want to achieve, right? Like, I want to make X amount of money. I want to own X amount of houses or cars or things or, meet certain people or make connections or whatever. We have all these legit goals. But if you really step back and start thinking, these goals are important to me because they're going to make me feel X. Like, is it freedom? Is it, connection? Is it, well, I mean, just anything, right? And like really, and that for me became like a big, North Star for me was really thinking, how do I actually want to feel? And moving towards that as the goal and kind of like bypassing all the numbers and things, like what do all these things actually mean? Like there's a deeper feeling in there. And then ultimately for me, that kind of went into, I think, um, especially in the United States, I think we're very much like trained to work, 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 and like do a lot of hard things and save up all of your happiness. And you'll be happy when you'll be happy when you retire. You'll be happy when you achieve that goal. And I think it's so important to be happy during the process. Like
mm,
all of this exploration that you've been talking about with your journey and like listening to yourself, after the state of flow, you were like, I need to do this. And you were like, no, I'm going to follow my joy right now. And it's like, it's just crazy when you start, I think actually following the things and you start noticing what the universe is providing and you start
Mm,
noticing the opportunities in front of you and you start taking them or, embracing them is a better word. And I don't know, that's where the magic just starts happening. It's like
mm.
living in that authentic, honest space with yourself, right?
I love that reframe of your friends, that challenge fear.
Yeah.
You know, something that's been coming up with me as we're having this conversation, and those little missteps and the things that we call failures, which aren't really failures, they're just like realignments. When we first opened Flow, it was quite early days, and there was this opportunity that was put in front of me, to kind of have this program. This company was going to fund this program for me, and I was going to be the face of it. It was this
Mm,
yoga. So, it was this yoga video, and at first it sounded cool. Like I get to have my own yoga video, and it could be, they're going to be advertising it on television. So it felt like a really exciting opportunity.
yeah.
And I lent into that, and I explored that, and I made some really good failures that became big life lessons, because as the project progressed, they wanted me to basically create up like a yoga dance and make it more fitness
Mm,
orientated. And I didn't think I had an out. Like I hadn't signed a contract on this or anything, but I didn't think I had. I just thought I had to commit to it. And
yeah.
so they had a choreographer come in, and like I am not necessarily a dance aligned person. I wouldn't say I'm the most what's the word I'm looking for? Coordinated dancer.
Yeah. I
And
don't believe that somehow,
not
but okay.
gelling. It was not gelling. I couldn't get it. And there were other things, like the people involved, the men behind the scene felt very they felt sexually unsafe to me. I felt unsafe with them.
Mm, mm,
Um, and I felt like I had no say whatsoever. And 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 in the end, I think we just pulled the dancing and we stuck with the yoga. And look, it didn't go anywhere, but it was just such a lesson with age. I mean, even now, since we've sold Flow, there's been opportunities come up, and I have absolutely no problem saying no.
mm.
But back then, I just thought, well, this is my only chance.
Yeah,
This is, even if it doesn't feel in alignment, I should take it. I should just take it because it's been put in front of me. And
right.
so, like, not everything that comes our way is necessarily for
Mm,
us. Things come our way for us to like feel into that honesty. Does this feel real? No. Okay. And
yeah,
then I say, when we get more clear on the no, the yes becomes stronger. We magnetize like bigger, full body yeses because we've put in the work for being honest. Okay.
yeah.
What's
Oh,
better?
I love that. Oh, she has a question.
It is the work, 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 conditioning the absence of value on listening, or do you think there's another route? Yeah. Do you think the absence of value on the? Yeah, I think we talked about that, didn't we? We talked about giving ourselves space. I think that's what she's alluding to, and giving ourselves space to listen.
Yeah, and I think because I had said that like the just culture around like work, 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 and not. Yeah, I think people, kind of myself included, I've totally done this. You get on autopilot, right, and
Mm,
you just kind of go, 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 and you're not making. Gosh, making time to
mm,
pause and ask yourself, and to your point of what you were just talking about, is when an opportunity comes up, sometimes you're just in go mode, right? So you say yes and you say yes and you say yes and you say yes because the opportunity is there. And you're like, well, I have to take it. Oh my gosh, the amount of times that I've done that with design work and just like totally buried myself, right?
yeah,
Versus like you said, actually like using your own like barometer and just being like, nope, this is not, this is not a good
yeah,
fit.
yeah,
And what's crazy is I think, and I'm learning more and more, the older I get too, right? Is the more I say no to something, that more that opens up space for the stuff I actually want, you
yeah.
know? And that's like, I mean, I'm curious, can you like pinpoint a way or a moment or even phase maybe of your life where it became easier to say no? Like, do you think it just like, I wonder about that sometimes. I'm like, did
Yeah,
that just happen gradually?
it happened to me gradually the moment I got honest about recovery. And
Mm,
those rooms, those recovery rooms were like practice for me, to be honest. Yeah. I
yeah.
think that turning point. So it was a long time. It was a long, long time, it was like 40 before I went into those rooms. So I think it does come with time, like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it comes with age. I'm sure there's some amazingly evolved young human beings out there, more and more being born these days, who
Right.
are more attuned and they've got these awesome tools. But for me, it took a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Yeah. That wow, it's 10:30. We've spoken for an hour. I feel like we've been speaking for 30 minutes. And I do
I
have,
know.
gosh, I should swing my camera around and show you. I have someone out there cleaning a window with music blaring. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it's kind of nice dance music out there. Mara,
Oh,
thank you so much for having a chat and getting online and sharing what you do with everyone. I personally find it very inspiring and I love our chats and thank you. I've
oh
had a
my
very
gosh.
nourishing morning.
Oh, this is the best way to end my Monday. So it's Monday evening here. So yeah, thank you so much, Kate. It's so lovely to chat with you as always. And yeah, you like you said earlier, like there's something about like a frequency when I talk to you. It lights me up. So I really appreciate it. And thank you to your friends here who are chatting. It's Rebecca there. So
I got one tuning in now or at any time. And yeah, here's to connections with more kindred spirits, people who we really connect with and can
yeah.
have authentic conversations with. Yeah, the people that we can, we don't have to always go deep, but those ones that we can really connect with and be honest with. Yes. So
Yes.
thank you. Big love, and I shall speak to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. Bye.